Tottenham are going to look completely different under Thomas Frank. I'm going to be explaining why his tactical shift is going to transform their build-up, why some players will be revolutionised under Thomas Frank, and why his backup plan could be the crucial difference in the big moment. So who fits into Thomas Frank's team, and how exactly will his tactics look? Let's step into it, shall we? So these were Brentford's average positions last season within Frank's 4-2-3-1 system, and each player had a designated zone. And he's even named this type of zone dominance local supremacy. To understand this, let's analyse the team zone by zone. So last season, Brentford's goalkeepers launched the ball the fourth most in the league. And while Tottenham under Ange launched it the least. That's an immediate and significant shift in style. However, Thomas Frank isn't tied to this method of build-up. When they do play it short, it's an interesting setup that sees the two defensive midfielders be extremely narrow when the ball is played, and both of them move towards the ball and are now goal side of the striker. Now, this is risky because there are three Man United players in the middle here, right? But Thomas Frank believes that taking risks is necessary, stating that not taking risks is taking a risk in itself. So the ball is played to the midfielder, who drags three opposition players centrally, creating space out wide for a pass to the centre-back. And what this does is it disjoints Man United's press and it pulls players into uncomfortable positions. So is Vicario capable of playing this role under Thomas Frank? Well, his stats do raise some eyebrows. No eyebrow jokes in the comments, please. They're big. They look like slugs. But we love slugs here. He made the third most errors leading to an opponent's shot last season with 6. However, Frank's more structured approach, I think, is going to iron out some of these problems. His use of a narrow double pivot means that Vicario will likely have 4 passing options available to him during this stage. And importantly, he has 4 different angles available to him as well. So if a striker presses Vicario, he will have an out ball at all times, no matter which direction the striker is applying. And we're talking about Thomas Frank and that ability to launch the ball. If he has to do that, that's available to him. Another great thing for Thomas Frank is that their defenders suit this setup too. Van der Ven will be very comfortable, while Romero will be good too, depending on if he stays, of course. But the real question is this: who will play in this double pivot base?
Some of you might remember that recently I did a home blood test to test my testosterone, because I was struggling to sleep recently, and it's one of the symptoms for possibly low testosterone. Now, fortunately for me, results came back and my testosterone was normal to high, actually. But the great thing is that I now know that I can tick that off and I can focus on different ways of sorting out my sleep quality. But if I didn't do the test, I wouldn't know the truth. And if I had low testosterone, with Manual's TRT service, I could get back to my old self again. In fact, 86% of patients saw an improvement in their energy levels after 3 months. First of all, Manual is a UK men's healthcare company that is looking to take away the shame of looking after yourself, and crucially challenging that outdated notion that as a bloke you should just shrug your shoulders and get on with things, instead of taking charge of your own body and getting as much information about it as possible. 1 in 4 men suffer from low testosterone, and 90% of those men are not diagnosed. Men's testosterone drops from 1 to 2% each year from the age of 35, and believe it or not, I am over 35. But your levels can start to decline from the age of 25. And so that's why it was really important for me to get myself tested and just understand what's going on, especially when I have some of the symptoms that go with low testosterone. So I implore you all, if you are suffering from some of the symptoms, low sex drive, low muscle mass, low energy, weight gain, erectile dysfunction, low mood, anxiety, lack of focus, or poor sleep quality, go get your levels tested, complete the Manual home blood test kit. And if you do have low testosterone, 86% of patients saw an improvement after 3 months of the Manual TRT service. Don't just put up with the symptoms. Use my code Allcott45 to get yourself 45% off your blood test with Manual's TRT service. Links in the description. Go check it out.
Let's look at the many different profiles Frank played here at Brentford. First up, Christian Norgard was one of these double pivot players frequently, one of the main men for him. And his main role was being a tempo setter, given the license to spray balls out wide and asked to use a wide range of passing, actually. Something that a lot of people won't give him credit for because he's this, big defensive midfielder, but it was his role in build-up that was absolutely crucial for Brentford. Let me explain. Flecken is looking to play the ball into Norgard here, into that tight, parallel double pivot. And instead of playing the ball wide, With his first touch, he takes a touch first, which lures in Christian Eriksen, then he plays the ball wide. Really good stuff. And after the pass, Eriksen stops pressing, giving Norgard the chance to receive it again and then repeat the move. Honestly, his role is key to Brentford's build-up. It's absolutely key that the player in this role for Spurs is calm in possession, has good game intelligence and never shies away from the ball. And so therefore, it does feel pretty obvious when you put that together. I think the player most suited to that right now is Bentancur. The thing to remember here, it's another key factor, and it's defensive output. Norgard made 128 tackles and interceptions last season. That is the most of any Brentford player by an absolute mile. And for Bentancur, he stacks up really well here, ranking in the top 1% in Europe for interceptions. But he does have a tendency to switch off sometimes, something that Thomas Frank will be looking to definitely address. So who fills that second spot for them at Tottenham? Well, at Brentford, Frank had two really different profiles filling this role. And first, he had Vicario Janelt, a really underrated lieutenant for Thomas Frank. He's a disruptor in that midfield, and he was often given a role of winning as many duels as possible, breaking up the opposition, and also making bursting runs once they did have the ball. Then you've got someone like Matthijs Jensen, known for his line-breaking passes, his creativity, a bit of a neater, prettier player, let's say. Now, for Spurs, there's two players that fit this. The first being Papa Matar. I think he could be a really crucial player in certain games to get this team providing the output that Tottenham fans want to see in the league. And whilst he's not the sexiest of players, his profile aligns so perfectly to Janelt. If you think of that stamina, that ability to get bodies in the box, which Thomas Frank really cares about, I think it could be crucial. The more positive option is someone like Bergvall. He is a player that fits this role perfectly. And in terms of that change from what Frank has been doing at Brentford, maybe being that little bit more cautious and understanding and accepting the opposition maybe being better, my belief that Thomas Frank's leaning is towards being positive. And because of his ceiling and ability to do a bit of everything in each third, I think Bergvall would be the perfect partner for Bentancur, a player that you want to invest in his development at Spurs. In the final midfield spot, there's a huge question over who plays in the number 10 because you can't fit everyone in. Now, of course, it's a squad game, so you're going to have to rotate it and might be horses for courses. But I think there's a big misconception about this position in Frank's system because you've got Mikkel Damsgaard, who he's kind of seen as this diminutive, creative midfielder, but I think that overlooks a key part of his game. Thomas Frank loved his work rate. He covered a total distance of 354,000 yards last season. That is a lot. That puts him 22nd in the entire league for distance covered. He is not a luxury player. And this is why one current Tottenham player might not be selected by Frank. Frank alluded to how he'll give creative players freedom to express themselves.
I just spoke to Vicario. So creative. And there's stuff I will never tell him because it's his decision on the pitch.
But he'll also give them instructions.
But if you're coming inside here and you're finishing from 26 yards, a little bit out of balance with your left foot and your right footed, probably an even worse decision.
If you don't follow these, he's just not going to pick you. As we saw, Carvalho didn't play that many games last season. And of course, Damsgaard was so brilliant as well. It's based on merit, right? So from the average positions earlier, it looks like the attacking midfielder is often really central. But from Damsgaard's heat map, you can see he spends a lot of time in those pockets out wide. So why does he do that? Well, he has the ball wide here with Visser and Schade and Mbeumo all in the box. That's your striker, your left winger and your right winger. And with Damsgaard coming wide, it means someone like Mbeumo doesn't have to be in that area, allowing Brentford to create sudden and unexpected overloads in a crucial part of the pitch, the box. Another key skill for that attacking midfielder is targeting space in transition. Because in these positions, they have to be effective when all their passing options are making deep runs, whilst also being able to play that killer, incisive pass in and around zone 14. So, who plays that role? Well, I think many people will think that James Maddison, due to him being excellent technically, like Damsgaard, would be the choice. And he actually has some similarities to someone like Christian Eriksen. So I don't think it's like one where he's just going to be like chucked out of everything. It's not a copy and paste when a new manager comes in. However, I can't stress enough how important I feel like the work rate is in that position and the need to be able to operate in wide areas as well. So, in my opinion, Kulusevski becomes the obvious choice for me. And then, do you know what, a really exciting choice as well. In the Premier League last season, he was 11th for time spent high-speed running. And at one point, he was the player who had completed the most sprints in the league. Was he overran a little bit? I mean, possibly. Of course, the injuries did start to reveal themselves. And I think there'll be a bit more cuteness with those sprints when it comes to Thomas Frank. And again, that ability to adapt. I just think Kulusevski showed that he has the capabilities to play in wide areas and centrally last season. I think he's an incredible player. And I just think he's one of the most perfect Thomas Frank players at Tottenham right now, in my opinion. Now, you may have noticed, don't worry, Jim, you've done it again. You're forgetting positions. You're getting messed up. Well, I've noticed that there aren't fullbacks, okay? This is because the relationship that they have with the forward players and how they're going to be used in transition by Thomas Frank is super important. So we wanted to get the other bits and pieces together first. So let's start with that left back, because for the majority of the season, Keane Lewis Potter played at left back, despite him being a natural winger from his days at Hull City. Have a look at his heat map. He always keeps width and attacks that left wing aggressively. Really, really given that license despite being, quote unquote, a left back. And it can often be a way for Brentford to knit together sort of quick attacks down the left flank when central areas are congested. And the reason for that is that he's just a really, really positive outlet on the left. And it allows someone like Schade to stay high on the left wing, playing on that last line of defence as well. And then at right back, it's quite a different story. Brentford rotated between Coyote and Aya. And Aya's positioning was far more reserved than Lewis Potter. Coyote did get forward a little bit more, but one term applies to both those players. Duel winners. They win their duels. And Coyote especially, he had a really great tackle percentage against dribblers, 69.2%. And so what that does, it allows the guy in front of him, and Burmo on the right wing, to often stay higher up the pitch. And so with the left back needing that engine to get up and down, Udogie is the obvious choice. And at right back, despite Porro being the player in the lineups up until this point, well, he's got great options, because Jed Spence's 1v1 quality could likely see him become a key part of his team. It's much closer than people might imagine. I think the one thing that is in Porro's favour is Thomas Frank's love of crosses and quality crosses, and Porro can provide that. But that ability to get up and down, that one-on-one quality, that kind of goes into the hands of Jed Spence, because he's better than Porro in that aspect for me. So I think it'll be one where it's kind of up for grabs when it comes to that right back position. Right, that brings us on to the wingers, and there could be some casualties here, guys, but also unexpected rivals for others. So firstly, Mathys Tel could become a superstar under Thomas Frank, in my opinion. Thomas Frank's history, you know, his career history is as someone that works with talent development, you know, getting the best out of players. And the potential that we see with Mathys Tel it's incredible. So this is a diagram showing his passes received and movements made last season. And in here, it lays a huge key into what his role could be. But first, let's go back to his time at Bayern Munich. And you can instantly see some Thomas Frank qualities, or the desired qualities, in his aggressiveness to win the ball high up the pitch. This combination and passing lane from Udogie to Tel, it could be extremely prominent under Frank. And extremely productive too. The way that Tel gets it, turns and targets the space in behind is likely going to be, it's going to be huge. A huge factor in him becoming the starting left winger, which I can see it. And I also expect this run into the half space to be key when Kulusevski has the ball in a central area. Okay, next is Brennan Johnson, a player who often got kind of crucified last season, despite being quite a consistent goal threat and putting up great numbers as well. Now, the beauty of Thomas Frank's arrival is that he will make him solely focus on scoring goals, which is exactly what he's good at. For me, he's not a winger, he's a wide forward. And with the majority of build-up play down that left-hand side, I think it means that Johnson won't be over-relied upon to dribble and beat his man. Instead, it means that he can focus on relentlessly targeting that back post, of which he loves doing. And so many of his goals came from exactly that. There's also something that has been lost from his game that is likely to return, but maybe not in this formation. We'll come back to that. And then we've got Dominic Solanke, because there's two ways Frank could use him. One could be the way that he used Ivan Toney, a physical focal point used to win aerial battles and pin opposition centre-backs to allow the runs of others. The other way could be more like Johan Visser, asking him to penetrate spaces behind and look to combine with forwards when penetrating space. And what's great for Thomas Frank is the beauty of Solanke is that it doesn't have to be one or the other. He's got the physicality to receive launches from the goalkeeper, whilst also having the technical ability and vision to bring others into play in cuter areas. And also in terms of a bit of a 1-2, can he win the flick on, spin and go, and be quicker than his centre-back? Ivan Toney can't. Dominic Solanke can. And all this means that they can mix their game up in the final third without having to make subs. And speaking of mixing the game up, Thomas Frank has been well known in accepting that during his time in the Premier League, you need to have a backup plan up your sleeve. You have to have multiple answers to get yourself over the line. And this is where we need to show you this. Nottingham Forest's average positions from the 22-23 season. Now, why are you showing us this, Jim? I hear you ask. Well, it's because I want to speak about Brennan Johnson and how his skill set is perfect for Frank's backup plan. So Johnson was often the highest player forward for Forest in this season and constantly looked to be a threat into space left in behind. And this is perfect for the 5-3-2 formation that Frank sometimes reverts to and utilises when he wants to absorb pressure. And it might be one where we see this maybe in the Champions League, maybe in those big games against Liverpool or Man City, where you want to kind of stay in the game for a second longer. And so by asking someone like Johnson as his primary role to look to target spaces like this, you eliminate the need for him to dribble past someone, and he can focus on finding him in that space in transition. Exactly what we're talking about. Ivan Toney, play it up to Ivan Toney, Solanke. He can flick it on, and you've got Brennan Johnson already there, attacking the space in behind. Tottenham's squad is really well suited to this tactical style. And under Thomas Frank, it could get them over the line in key moments, or just manage games a little bit better. So Tottenham's squad is well suited to this tactical style, and that's before we even talk about any transfers coming in. And by the way, I found the perfect signing for every Premier League club. Why don't you click here and watch it?